Hey there, I'm Will.
And I'm Karen.
And welcome to the Skeptic Metaphysicians, where we question the mystical, test the intuitive, and try to figure out whether that cosmic download was divine guidance or just low blood sugar. Today, we're diving into something that sounds big, maybe even lofty. We're talking channeling, Christ consciousness, coherent auras, but we're approaching it the way we always do, not as blind believers, not as armchair skeptics, but as curious humans who want to know, can you actually train perception? Can you strengthen your energy the way you strengthen a muscle? And can you stay spiritually open without becoming energetically overwhelmed in a world that's getting louder and louder by the minute? My name is Will.
And I'm Karen.
And unlike Mulder and Scully,
we both want to believe.
So we've embarked on a journey of discovery.
We've talked to people deeply entrenched in the spiritual and metaphysical world.
We've thrown ourselves into weird and wonderful experiences. I even joined a coven of witches.
And wait, you joined a coven?
Yep, all in the interest of finding something.
Anything.
That will prove that there's something beyond this physical,
three-dimensional world we all live in.
This is the Skeptic Metaphysicians. Today's guest is someone who's not interested in spiritual performance. She's interested in spiritual maturity. Gayle Thomas has spent years working in expanded states of consciousness, but her work has evolved far beyond live channeling sessions and cosmic theatrics. These days, she's focused on something much more demanding, helping people and helping people develop the capacity to hold higher awareness without losing their footing in everyday life. Now, she's trained groups internationally, become faculty at a cosmic school in the south of France, and is now building structured trainings around energetic sovereignty, ESP development, and guiding adults to help the next generation stay connected without being swallowed by the noise of the modern world. In other words, this isn't about escaping reality. It's about strengthening your relationship to it. And that's why this conversation matters. Gayle, thank you so much for being on the show today.
Thank you. Wow, what an introduction. I'm very pleased to be here and to do our part two.
Yes.
To be back on the show.
Yes, excited to have you back on the show. But first I have to ask you, when people say, wow, what an introduction, it could go either way. It could go like, oh, what an introduction. Or wow, what an
introduction. She was smiling. She was smiling.
Yeah, but she's very polite. So
it wasn't like, wow.
No, in a good way. No, I meant in a good way. It was great.
Oh,
Thank you.
Good.
Well, I don't know how else we could introduce you, but in a good way.
That's right. Yeah. You are one of our absolute favorite guests. So thank you so much for coming on, agreeing to be on the show again. There's been a lot of changes in your life in the last few years since we last spoke to you. TARP is still a thing with you.
Yeah.
And for those that don't know about TARP, we encourage you to go back in our archives and find her last interview because it's fascinating. But in a nutshell, you are a channel of interdimensional beings called TARP. And you have learned a lot through these beings. But now you are taking it from that to a more practical way of moving forward. So tell us what has been going on with you?
Well, thanks. It seems like you really get it, actually. Okay, so TARP very much has been a foundation or a cornerstone of the work I do and the way I orientate my life and the things that I work with. But really, what it has been about is learning to expand that bandwidth of consciousness, let it flow through me enough for me to realize that I don't actually need to just be TARP all the time in a public persona, just be myself and teach people how to connect with their own guides, because everyone can connect to a wider bandwidth or feel more connected to something higher or bigger than what they feel they are in normal day-to-day life. And it's just a case of relaxing into it and letting that coherence find itself in you rather than searching outside and seeking answers outside all the time. So there was always something that I felt about channeling TARP to big audiences that made me feel uncomfortable because I didn't want it to seem or come across that I was the one that had all the answers. That didn't feel like it. It felt like I was just being naturally myself and, in fact, mirroring a field of consciousness that exists before we all do, in a sense, as like physical flesh and uh, blood bodies, a kind of field of consciousness that exists before manifestation. So you can call it channeling as an easy way of understanding it, but really it feels like something that is me before I manifest, and I'm just mirroring it or tapping into it directly and giving people guidance that they are allowing themselves to hear, that is coming from a place that is a pure and perfect place before they've got themselves into all these mental problems or struggles that they're feeling on that day or that week or that part of their life. So I've kind of just let that guidance in me just kind of sit there in the background. I still offer that as personal sessions for people when they do want that verbal guidance or they want the hands-on healing and activation. But it's been very satisfying for me and fulfilling for me to put this kind of down into courses and training so people can feel more empowered. I feel it's more of a modern day approach to just moving into life and where it calls us to be and takes us right now with our consciousness, because I feel that at the end of the day, we are trying to develop our consciousness. We are trying to develop the non-physical part of ourselves, because I guess this is the thing that is most precious right now in an era that is going to be bombarded and flooded with AI. We have
Yeah.
to keep the things that are unique and precious and divine, or you could say God-given, wholesome and connected within us, because that will never get taken away by AI. Our feelings of connection, which is a non-physical feeling, it's not just a hug. And
Mhm.
our feelings of bliss, that's non-physical. They are distinctly human traits. And that's really what we need to stay sovereign. You know?
So do you think, if you're teaching kind of people how to tap in, do you think that everyone is connected in that gut feeling that you get, or that like weird, like, oh, I shouldn't go into that room or whatever? Is that actually channeling, but people aren't really listening to it as much as they should?
Yeah, I think that's a version of feeling connected and listening to the wider, more wholesome version of yourself that goes beyond your thinking mind, your chattering mind.
Mhm.
That is exactly you or something bigger than you speaking to you. And that is really your anchor, that is the most truthful and the most authentic for your life, rather than the mind which gets pulled in different directions with the, daily discussions of vicissitudes of things happening around you.
And it's so interesting because we're sort of taught to not listen to your gut feeling, especially as women. I see the things on social media that say, trust your gut. When you have the feeling, don't go into that elevator. Don't worry about being polite. But we're taught to be polite. So I think, listen to our outer ego and the lessons, the social lessons, more than what that connection is telling us. Don't go into that elevator.
Yeah, very interesting. You've raised a couple of points there. Yes, that is kind of encouraged out of us sometimes. And I think it's very interesting, especially as women, we get a lot of these hunches
Yeah.
and gut feelings. And, I'm of the age of perimenopause, and it's very interesting. I see a lot of stuff on social media about this is the time when we're coming into more of that intuition and wisdom, and we have a lot to offer there, and yet it is something that is frowned upon or not spoken about, or the symptoms that we go through. And I feel that is some kind of in way of negating that wisdom that tends to come through with
Mhm.
women our age. And I'll share another thing that I realized recently, and I have to credit my friend Alexa in Bali for this, because I've been giving talks recently on how to keep that bliss feeling or the feeling of connection in our young people, because
Mhm.
that's a group especially that is kind of bound to their screens and losing that sense of connection with a fuller sense of self, and losing the ability to feel bliss, just the normal everyday regular feeling of bliss. um, and you're talking about women are taught to kind of ignore that gut feeling. This was pointed out to me quite often when we have kids. If you're a parent, you might relate to this, and I've done it too. When someone speaks to a child, you say, look that person in the eye, but the child may naturally not want to. Sometimes kids look down when they see a new person or a
Mhm.
stranger, and they look down. Now, we're kind of negating their instinct there as well. So
Yeah.
looking at, I'm sure there's an example with many different groups of people.
Mhm.
But my friend pointed out to me, she said, Gayle, eyes are like portal, and you should trust children. When they meet strangers, they don't necessarily want to lock their energy in with someone else. If they feel vulnerable, they'll naturally look down. Guess us as adults, we do that too.
Mm.
And let them. Don't force them. Don't force them to look people in the eyes. And it's interesting because I think there's, on the one hand, with young people, you want to encourage them to look people in the eye, to make connections so they don't feel isolated and alone, but then to respect that instinct if they are meeting people for the first time, or they just don't feel that they're trusting that person, to be able to look down and not lock in with that energy.
Mhm.
So there are many access points to our gut feelings and our intuitions that are reflected somatically in our body. And there are many instances where we try to negate it. And I think sometimes it's just a case of becoming aware of it.
Well, you have now activated thousands of devices across the world by using your friend's name, Alexa, out there. So thank you for that. Now we have thousands of devices playing the Skeptic Metaphysicians on
Hey.
there. But I bring that up only because Alexa and these devices have been tools that we have been bringing into the human consciousness, and it's really kind of taking over our processes in every way and disconnecting us in a lot of ways. We were talking yesterday about a study that came out that our attention spans are getting shorter and shorter because the videos that are being served are shorter and shorter to cater to that kind of thing. And AI is doing the same thing. It's helping us to not do things, not use our minds as much. So it's disconnecting us in a lot of ways from humanity. Now, what you are teaching is almost the complete opposite. It is not relying on tools like channeling and things like that, but rather discover the Christ consciousness within yourself and others around you in order to connect. Do I have that right?
Yeah, and it does sound weird because it sounds like things are getting more complicated just to get more simple. And I guess there's a metaphor, not really a metaphor, but the example I like to use here is with Picasso. He had to learn how to paint like a master before he could let it go and just be free and uninhibited and paint like a child at the end, very innocently and purely from the heart, really just let it flow through him. But he had to go through some training about what it is and what it isn't first.
Mhm.
And in a sense, that's been my own journey with my connecting with TARP and connecting with the Christ consciousness. And in a sense, that's also one I'm trying to get across to people, that Christ consciousness is a feeling of coherence and alignment, and it's a mirroring of an energy and a consciousness that is there before you came into the body. It's not necessarily reaching outside of yourself to grasp onto an entity. In fact, it's quite a tricky time to know what is what in this day and age. But there is a way to tap back into that kind of universal truth or that universal feeling. And that feeling which I'm referring to as Christ consciousness is a sense of being fully embodied and being able to bring that sense of bliss and expansion down into the human self on a bodily level while on earth. So it's that sense of coming down onto earth, bringing that energy into your body and anchoring it into your physical life. And you don't have to say the word channeling, and it doesn't have to be an ET, or it doesn't have to be, XYZ. It is a
Abracadabra.
feeling, it's a feeling of coherence. It's a feeling of unconditional love. And we're talking about AI and our, the possible ideas and fears around it. I think it's just a really important time to use all the benefits of AI. So we're freed up potentially with more time on our hands to cultivate the things that really are uniquely us for being human. That consciousness, that Christ consciousness, that feeling of coherence, feeling more what energy feels like beyond the body. Because I think I'm not talking about the near future, I'm talking about across this age, we're moving in a direction of interiorizing our physical bodies and exteriorizing the higher consciousness or the purer Christ consciousness into out. So there's kind of a reverse I feel that we're in an age of that where it's going to reverse and we're going to bring out this consciousness, but only if we are not cutting ourselves off, only if we are trying to learn these skills, like learning how to feel love and connection with each other, learning how to feel and embrace bliss, not negate it. You know, I've seen a few people over the years that have asked if I can help them feel connected or that sense of oneness. And first time I heard it, I felt surprised. There are people out there that don't feel connection, and they've never felt that sense of oneness or never felt a feeling of bliss.
I would say that's the majority of the people here.
Yeah, I would agree. I think that there's a disconnection. And I think maybe it's because we're so caught up in the day-to-day that we don't take the time to actually sit and notice the connection. We're too distracted.
Yeah. But it was interesting listening to you describe the feeling of Christ consciousness. I don't know if you heard, if it made it to the news over where you are, but we recently had a group of monks that...
Oh, yeah, I've been following them.
Oh, okay. So we actually went out and saw them and gave them flowers, and it was amazing. But I think that was in Buddhism, or that was their way of kind of saying the same thing. They're saying, we're not saying bring peace to everyone, bring peace to yourself. Because once you build that inner peace and that sense of balance and that sense of love, you'll radiate that, and that will, create those connections. It's just a different way of doing the same thing, and I love that so much.
Yeah, peace starts from within, absolutely.
Yeah. But I just like that there's so many different languages of it, so it can reach and affect so many different people with that same feeling and that same message. That's so necessary.
Yeah.
Definitely.
Yeah, I've loved following them, and it's a different pathway in, and but I do see in a lot of young people. It's quite concerning, actually, and I don't know if this is because they've grown up on social media. Should I point the finger at Gen Z? I mean, it's quite general, but I do see a lot of Gen Z that have kind of sociopathic tendencies or narcissistic tendencies, and I wonder where they're going to get their real sense of bliss. There are a lot of addictions that come from doom scrolling and the way they value human connection and the ways they interact. It doesn't seem very healthy and wholesome. Now, they may grow through that, but it is troubling to see sometimes.
Well, and with social media, they're taught that what's important aren't the actual human connections, but the likes. And the likes are their main source of validation.
You got 100 likes on this post. Yeah. I can't help but think that everything is perfect. Gen Z has to go through these things. We're meant to go through it so that we can learn once we get on the other side of it. Just like we talked before we started recording about my broken ankle in my second day of vacation, because the second, Karen, it was the second
first,
day.
It was the first. Travel day doesn't count.
But I needed that because I was running 1,000 miles a minute, and the universe said, well, if you're not going to listen to me, I'm going to make it so that you have to. So I can imagine Gen Z getting to a point where they unfortunately have to experience a complete breakdown, very similar to how the show was created, before they suddenly go, oh crap, I got to let go of all this ego stuff and look inside and find out who I am and how I'm connected. And that's why I'm grateful for folks like you who are here, to pick up the pieces, because that's exactly what's going to happen, right? You're going to turn to you for people who already have, asking you, how can I be connected? So, Gayle, how can we be connected to that Christ consciousness
and
within?
Stay connected.
And stay, yes.
I think it's, it depends where you are, where you need to get to from there. And I think and by the way, I'm not the only one picking up the pieces.
Oh, no, thankfully.
There are so many of us picking up the pieces.
And more of you out there. Yeah.
That's what's so encouraging, because I don't feel alone and you don't feel alone. And sometimes I feel that we're on such a big momentum journey that it's really infectious. So where do we start with the bliss experience? Well, we can talk about us as adults, and we can talk about our young, but I think with our young, we can start off by learning to feel the body, first of all, bring the awareness into the whole of the body. I mean, adults too, but a lot of our young are in their head because they're on social media and they're just really just trying to get through the day. They've got their shortened attention spans. There are for a single answer for our young people, there is one system that has many branches to it that is kind of a complete offering for young people, and that is yoga. You have the pratyahara exercises, which are exercises which train people to withdraw their senses, and they're exercises such as, covering the eyes or covering the ears and humming or, bringing your awareness to the breath. They bring the awareness in, and that teaches young people and adults, if you happen to have a concentration problem, how to stay in the moment, how to hold an emotion, how to stay with it until it washes through you. It lengthens their time that they can go without seeking that instant gratification. So this delayed response, because that's a generation that is used to just responding, stimulus response all the time, and allowing that to happen. Not just pratyahara practices, but breath practices, mindfulness practices, even movement practices, any kind of Eastern or martial arts technique or yoga or movement that brings the awareness in the whole of the body. That's a start. Coming out of the head and into the wholeness of your being. That's one thing. And then as a complete system for young people, going through those various practices helps you find yourself within your body, helps you feel that connection to something greater. That connection to something greater or to more of yourself only happens when you're in the present moment, by the way. It can't happen in any other moment. And when you're in the present moment, it can become very elongated and very abundant and spacious. That's where you find all your intuition, all your bliss, all your connection, all your higher selfness. It's only in the present moment. So there are 1,000 people out there that are teaching presence, whether it be Wim Hof through the breath or whether it be, Qigong techniques or anything. But these practices that bring you into the present moment, when you open that door of the present moment, there you'll find bliss, there you'll find connection, there you'll find intuition. I could give you much more specific things, but in terms of simplicity,
Yes.
that's it, really.
Oh, I love it. And Eckhart Tolle talks about it all the time, the power of now, that kind of thing. And we talked about on the show the importance of putting the damn phone down and actually being in the moment with your family.
So now I just want to either find a program or create a program that's for kids, for teenagers, like a retreat where they learn all of these things, because
But
they're the ones that are getting sucked in, like our daughter's age. She just started high school, and that's when it all just whoom.
Yeah. But the key is that you have to actually make time for it.
Right, but what I'm saying is, like, we haven't, we hear and we get fed information for adults. There's this retreat, there's this going on, there's a summit there, but I haven't seen anything geared towards kids right at that age where I think it would be so effective. I mean, is that something that you have do you have something for young kids at see, that's what we
Actually,
that's perfect.
Well, you know what, Karen? It's not exactly for kids. It's for teaching adults how to facilitate these sessions with kids.
Got it.
So, so a long time ago, I used to work with kids with yoga as a yoga therapist. Now what I'm offering is training for adults to work with kids to facilitate bliss and connection in them. And in that training, there is a range of things covered. There are teachings of how to come back into body, teachings of how to feel present through the voice, through the body, through meditation, through the breath, through all kinds of movement. And then there's training for adults to facilitate kids out in nature to show this kind of as above, so below principle of creation and cosmos. So the fractality, so the same little spirals and patterns that you see in the galaxy are in a shell, are in a cauliflower, are in the cells of the body, to recognize that there is this repeating fractality that happens across all of creation, that we're all part of the same thing. It's all a holographic reality. And showing children or teens or young adults this makes you feel much more connected to the world around that is natural, that you are a natural being in a natural world, and it all comes from the same creation, the same building blocks, and the same oneness or consciousness. So the courses that we're going to be rolling out, and they start this year, they start in the summer, and they'll probably continue. We'll be training adults to become facilitators and go out into the real world and be able to lead classes. Of course, they have to get their own police checks and things like that to work with kids.
Sure.
But we're giving them the framework that they can then go into schools and institutions and nurture children to feel that sense of bliss and oneness and connection without having to try too hard. It's just a case of providing that opportunity for young people.
Mm-hmm.
And it's a very pleasurable experience to go through all of that.
And even just opening their mind to the possibilities, because so many of us, at least our generation, which is what, Gen X, we
Gen
didn't
Gen X. Gen X.
Okay. Yeah, we didn't even know about. I mean, you knew little bits and bobs here and there, but it wasn't really until kind of we got older and you start searching. You have that search. You've got the career. You've got the family. Now what? And then you have to look and you have to find something. But if we would have started out just knowing that all this stuff is out there, and it would have been so much easier. And I think so many people would not have that sense of isolation and loneliness that I think is really causing so many of the problems that we have in the world today.
Whew.
So that's wonderful. Thank you for doing that, because that's tremendous. And I think it's going to be incredibly, incredibly helpful and unifying.
Yeah.
Thanks, Karen. I think, we talk about Gen X. Yeah, we were the 70s kids, and the traits, parents famously left us on our own. We were left to our own devices.
Feral generation.
Yeah.
Completely.
Feral generation. We knew how to be bored. We'd make something up out of nothing. But things could have been easy for us. We did learn a lot of things the hard way. But I think our young now, I can't fathom how it must be for them, from everything to, body image and shaming and bullying. I just, there are so many layers to it that I think there's a way to cut through all of that. And down to Gen X again, because I say that because we sort of had to carry a lot of the burden that our baby boomer parents didn't carry. But down to Gen X again, we are the ones that can help the older youths nurture the younger youths. We are the ones that can do it. Yeah. We are resourceful as a generation.
Yes, absolutely.
Well, some of you. then there's us. I just kind of sit back and watch you guys do your work.
Oh, you were pretty resourceful back in the day.
Well, back in the day, but I think now I've fallen into the AI
maybe
trap.
Not so smart. I remember building in the living room like a little fire because I wanted to cook beans.
You built a fire in your living room?
Yes, in a shag carpet, and it was in like a coffee can, and I put a bunch of sticks in there, and I balanced something over, and I had this little tiny fire going inside. It was terrible. I could have burnt the house down.
Yeah.
But I didn't.
We can go down a huge rabbit hole of all the ways that we should have been dead by now. But so I love that you brought up yoga, because immediately people like me, I will blame myself because it's exactly where my mind went. First and foremost, you say yoga and you think, exercises.
Yeah.
Right? You think the poses.
So been there, so done that. Everybody talks about yoga.
Yes. But yoga is there's such a breadth of experiences in yoga that people don't realize, because it's a lot more than just poses and meditation. There's a lot more to yoga. In a somatic sense, in a lot of ways, it helps you to connect. But also, after you connect somatically, then there's a step beyond that. Right. And that is your energetic body, your aura. And you also help with getting in contact with that. Right. How does that work?
Yeah, that's another part to it. When we're talking about our energy and where we are in our life in this era, this modern day, and we've now all lived through the pandemic, where we had this huge morphic field of fear, and we're talking about our youth being, having their attention pulled this way and their attention pulled that way, and it really is kind of a battle of attention and energy. Where does your energy get taken? And really, when you think about it, our energy is our greatest asset. There is nothing greater than our energy. Without energy, we are kaput. And our energy is very much focused and contained when we bring awareness to it. So we were speaking about yoga and other systems like yoga. But part of where I feel that we're at now is that it's really about time that we learn to master our energy 101 and start to think about, what is our energy body? Okay, let's go beyond chakras. Maybe let's even go beyond meridians. People know about acupuncture and Chinese medicine, and they even probably have heard of qi, ki, or prana with various practices that are out there. But learning to think about the fact that we all have our energy field. We have a powerful heart that emits a very big frequency, a very big vibration. In fact, all our chakras do. But we all have an energy field. And if our attention is focused and our breath is coherent, then we have a coherent energy field around us. If we're pulled out of place for some reason, maybe we've been scared by watching the news, or we've had a disagreement with something, our energy can get pulled off to one side. We can get holes in our aura or a weak aura, and then this kind of energy can leak out, or we can have invested too much time and energy into something that's not serving us, and that pulls out the balance of our chakras. They can get skewed. They move away from the center. And when things aren't coherent or centripetal, like running on a central axis, then we have certain parts of our energy pulled left, right, and center, and our focus is not so contained. And it does have an effect on our immune system. It has an effect on our moods, the way we come across to people. And this is very important. So I thought that it's about time, really, we start to think about that whole thing, the energy 101 of why we can be coherent, how we can be coherent, and what makes us sovereign, independent, uninfluenced by things that we don't want to be influenced by, able to make up our own mind without being scared or without feeling pressured, without being led down divisive paths that wind us up or make us angry, or even deplete us, make us feel tired. And a lot of people suffer with fatigue. A lot of people suffer with all kinds of health ailments. But, you know, even when you're sick, you have an energy body that is exacerbated, depleted in some way. It could be, you know, your chakras pulling off and your energy field pulling outwards. There are a number of things that can happen, but another way into health and coherence and that feeling of connection is via the energy body. And it's not difficult to bring yourself into a centered place. And when you do bring yourself into a centered place, you can bring your aura into coherence. You know, the ideal situation is to have a strong aura with strong boundaries, meaning that when you walk into a party or when you walk into a room, you come across very well to other people. You have healthy boundaries. You don't look like you're weak or fatigued, or you don't know who you are, or you don't have clarity about yourself. You know who you are. You're standing present in your body. That comes across. That means you have a strong aura. Now, people quite often, empaths, and definitely I fell into this category. I had a large spongy aura, which means I was very much wanting to connect out into the world and be friendly and friends with everybody. But it often meant, as a young person, I would give too much of myself away and I'd feel tired, or I'd say yes when I actually needed to say no. I didn't have those strong boundaries. I never knew how to charge enough money for my services. People might take advantage of me, or all kinds of things, even in personal relationships. So that often happens with empaths. And I do often see that with people that want to get guidance and clarity on their future or how they can feel more successful or abundant. And one of those things is about getting your energy back in, let's start with symmetrical, coherent aura, but then eventually work your way up to having a large, strong aura. Because someone like the Dalai Lama, for example, let's give you that example, has got a large, strong aura.
Mm-hmm.
He's no pushover. He does have boundaries.
Yeah.
He has compassion, but he's never brought down to someone's misery. He's able to stay in his place where he can help with his compassion. So he has that strength in his aura. So that's a great example as an inspirational figure. But having and cultivating a large, strong aura, not a leaky aura or a spongy aura where you take on other people's bad feelings and you worry about it, or you get hurt very easy. It could be in the workplace, it could be in the home setting with your family. We just have to leave the room. These are surprisingly commonplace things, and this is time that we learned this, because it's a very easy way to manage yourself in life.
So do you think that all comes back to the Christ consciousness? By being in touch with that, it should strengthen your aura, or is that a different practice?
No, it's very much one and the same thing, but Christ consciousness is a feeling and an experience and a consciousness that you can bring in or you can mirror into the world, but you have to be in a place of coherence first to raise your vibration, to access that.
Right.
So it's a process and a journey. So in my personal journey, let's say I went through a healing journey with cancer. My intention was to heal myself by bringing awareness to the imbalance of my body, and I wanted to work on my body, my biology, cell by cell, and alchemize it, turn it around, thank it, love it, forgive it, ask it to change. And in my efforts to do that, I worked very hard on breathing exercises, meditation, mindfulness things, mantra repetition, and prayer. Now, on this one particular day, I must have been always during the meditation sessions in very coherent states. And then I guess a high vibratory state for me. And I did the asking, Jesus, if you're there, will you heal me? And then this is when I had this profound Jesus or Christ conscious experience. Now, I'm not sure that would have come to me in my scared, stressed, running around everyday life that I'd had before then. It took for me to get sick to actually say, right, stop, back to the drawing board. I'm in a stew now. What am I going to do? I've got to turn this around. I've got to pull something out the hat. And because I had that fear, I had that motivation to really, really try and work hard on myself. Look at the shadows, look at the ugly bits, look at it all, sit with myself, actually sit down. Because I hadn't done that before, really, for a long time, maybe not even as an adult. And that coherence from that consistent, conscious practice every day led me to the pure, profound, loving experience of Christ. Now, it was a very high and intense feeling of love that I felt on that day. Now, I'm not suggesting we all walk around with that extremely high, elevated place of rapture that I experienced on that day, but even though that moment washed over me and it washed away, it left me in a more open place. Certain things embedded down in me, certain things anchored down in me. I lost my fear of dying, and a lot of other things lightened up. But now, even though I don't walk around in that constant place of rapture the way I first experienced it with him, I can tap into it. Now I can refer back to it, and I know what that felt like, and I know that it is there, and I know that it's not just a person, a man called Jesus walking around. It is much bigger than that. It is a place that is in existence before we all came into body. It is a place and a state of being, which is however you want to refer to it, as a state of godliness coming home, or a state of the divine, which in essence really is what we humans are about. We're not robots, we're not AI. We are something special. Yeah.
I just want to let that sit for a second. That's profound. That is who we are. And yet, so seldom do we truly understand that. And so if you get one thing from this episode, I want it to be that we are so much more than what we are positioning ourselves as right now. And Gayle, thank you for helping us to frame that in such a perfect way. All right. Well, if you haven't listened to Gayle's previous episodes on our show, I would urge you strongly to do that. We're going to leave a direct link in our show notes so that it's easy for you to identify and listen to it, because you touched on your experience with Jesus and the Christ and having a deeper dive into how that all happened. That's in our previous episode. So we really encourage you to go back and listen to that, because it's a
an amazing
remarkable story. Yes. And an emotional one that
Yeah.
really you can see when you speak about it, it really touches you and it touches us. So I'm sure that anyone who listens to it will be touched as well. So
Yeah,
okay.
it really was a turning point in my life, and I do often get tearful when I'm asked to explain what happened to me. It's quite difficult to put into words a feeling that is bigger than you've ever had before.
Yeah. But remembering the story, you can see where all of your focus on going back to that Christ consciousness has become so important to you, because it was a life-changing experience that helped you get through an awful diagnosis, a cancer diagnosis that that we dive into on the other episode. So
Yeah, that so many of us experience.
yes, and more these days, unfortunately.
Yeah.
So now when you tap, because now you can tap in, I guess not easily, but maybe it's easy to the Christ consciousness, is the feeling, how does it compare to that original feeling? Is it as strong, or is it
No.
more familiar, or?
Yeah. So it has happened to me, well, I'd say twice in a very strong way, and a third time in a kind of more mild way. But what I'm tapping into is the knowing, the memory of that experience, and the knowing which is just kind of installed in me now. It's kind of just a field of consciousness that I'd say is in the background of me. So of course I'm getting preoccupied in my day-to-day life and, getting on with my normal everyday stuff. But it's something that I can refer back to, not the heights of the original first feeling, but it's something that I have felt and I can refer to and I can remember. I know it's there. I know it exists. And I know that that is what I'll be experiencing a lot more of when I transition from the body.
Mm.
Okay. So it's like,
yeah.
there's a bouquet of flowers and it has this incredibly strong, beautiful scent. And you remove that bouquet, but you can still have that lingering scent. So it's kind of like coming back to that, maybe.
I love the way you put things into me.
It's very poetic, but that's true. And it's like going somewhere and getting the essence of that scent and it taking you all the way back to that original special
Yeah.
feeling. Very much so.
Mm. And now you are helping others to connect to these
Yes.
kinds of this feeling. So if someone wanted to take just the first baby step into doing that, I know we talked about yoga, but let's say that they within their own confines, what's the first step that someone should do in order to get connected to that Christ consciousness?
I think yoga sounds like a big daunting word, especially
It
because it
does.
represents so much. I think there is the asking side of it and giving yourself permission to be able to experience that for yourself. I think it's more than just wanting to find presence. Presence is the doorway, of course, in which all of that can happen. But the Christ consciousness experience itself, it depends who you are and where you are in your life and from where you are asking. So if you are asking from a place of coherence and you have had a very strong way of being coherent and balanced and centered for most of your life, then this is just a case of changing your perspective and making yourself willing and open for the highest intention and the highest good of yourself. There are other people that would be coming from this from a place of addiction or from a place of trauma, in which case they've got some journey to go through first, and that's a journey of finding coherence first and foremost, a journey of finding the presence within yourself, a journey of moving from your head into your heart, that journey of coming into the whole body, but learning to think with the heart. So most of us, again, something that we've had trained out of us, we're often thinking with the head or we're thinking with our instincts. Even we spoke about, Karen, feeling things with the gut. But really the thinking should be done with the heart. So learning to be and relate to people in our everyday life. We spoke about kindness before in our previous chat with each other, but there's a place to start, learning to think and feel from the heart, learning to be heart oriented in your life rather than, we need our senses, we need our mental faculties to, write emails and cross a road and drive a car. But then the decisions and the way we come across to people and the way we respond to people, if we just stop ourselves in all the moment and try to learn to re-habituate ourselves into responding from the heart rather than responding from the head, often that takes a second or two to just close up your eyes and say, right, I'm going to take my time here and find it before I speak.
Mm-hmm.
Rather than experiencing, reacting. So there's a start of Christ consciousness, being heart-led, heart-centered, which incidentally is something very much fundamental in my teaching coherence with the energy body to people and teaching adults to work with kids, to work with them in a heart-centered, heart-led way. But there is your access. But remember, people come at their self-development or their spiritual progress from different places, and some of us, we all go through that journey, that dark night of the soul, and we all have things that we need to face up to or traumas that we're doing our best to work through. And so we all find ourselves in different places along that line of life and the life arc. So first and foremost, find that coherence. You find coherence by being in the presence. Coherence can happen from a number of ways, but essentially you're bringing your awareness in and you're working on that balance in your energy body. On a practical level, on a day-to-day level, it's learning to operate from the heart.
Mm. So as a teacher and a coach and a mentor, how do you help somebody who is doing all the things and they're doing the yoga and they're doing the meditating and they're reaching out from the heart and they're trying and they're not connecting and they're seeing other people that it's working for and it's not working for them? How do you help them stay in that path, on that path?
You're asking for a friend, right?
That's good for lots of friends.
Yeah, and that's a really good question, because sometimes, and I go back to that Picasso analogy, we can try so hard. There's almost like an arc to it. When the time is right, the time is right. And you kind of have to learn to do the motions before you can learn to let it all go. And sometimes there's a paradox. When you want something so badly, you get this often with people wanting to learn how to channel or anything, wanting to find true love. You try so hard that the angst actually is the resistance, is the block. And sometimes it's just a case of letting go. So there are, for those who have a lot of resistance to practices that are working on the subtle, finer arts of connection and perception, there are the wonderful practices that you would put in the more gross category, that have more physical or loud things for you to hold on to, that allow you to distract your mind while you experience a letting go behind the scenes. So things such as, the very loud and vigorous breathing of Wim Hof, or any breathing exercise that has a noise and it has a gusto and it has an effort. You are trying very hard. Cold therapy is really good for that. Things that are so big and so pronounced that you can't possibly hold on to the idea that you want to feel that bliss or that Christ consciousness so much because you're thinking about the cold, or you're thinking about the numbers that you're counting in your head, or you're thinking about the breathing exercises or the chant you're doing or the dance you're doing. It's what happens to you when you are distracted. Then there is a letting go that happens behind the scenes. And in that letting go of the nervous system, there is a resting place. There is that coherence that you can find behind it. So people trying too hard perhaps are stuck too much in the mind, and therefore they need practices that are more physical or more audible to distract the mind so the body can understand behind the scenes on a whole level, because the body is speaking a certain language of vibration, and it knows its origin state, this Christ consciousness state. It knows the language of the cosmos. The mind doesn't. The mind and the body, they speak different languages. So sometimes you just have to give the mind something to get on with so your body can do what it finds natural without the brain or the mind being resistant to it.
Right. Well, and these are the kinds of things that you help people with. In fact, we'd be remiss if we didn't mention the coherent aura mastery courses, the your training, which we already talked about, training adults to help a young bliss connection. But you also teach channeling as well. If someone wants to reach out to you and learn from you or just connect with you in some way, what's the best way for someone to do that?
Well, I think you can go to my YouTube channel. That's a good way to see a lot of what I talk about, and there are practices and there are lessons and theory there. Or you can go to my website where you are welcome. I welcome you to book a discovery call. I'd love to actually chat to you if you have some questions there, and you can tell me where you are and where you'd like to get to. And there's also a free gift on my website, so you can go there. There is a very accessible masterclass there called Christ, Stars and the Tarp Code, which is a kind of energetic experience, a very short 1-hour experience, very accessible, where I lead people through the journey of my Christ and Tarp experience and what Christ consciousness is. Beyond that, if you want to know a bit more about Tarp, there is the Book of Tarp, which is a kind of profound wisdom teaching about life and how to feel that happiness and connection and living in this kind of heart loving action place. And
if I was a better producer, I would have thought ahead and had, because I have the book and I should have had it ready to show, but it's right here behind me.
Oh yeah?
Yeah.
I've got it.
There we go.
There you go.
Yeah.
Failing that, I'm going to be in Sedona in March, and you can come and see me there in person just to say hi if you want. If you happen to be in the area or any one of these big events happening, I'll be there for the Sedona Ascension Retreat, and I'll be doing a talk on Christ, Stars and the Tarp Code, and I'll be doing a coherent aura, etheric energy hygiene workshop there, and I'll also be doing a Tarp hands-on healing and activation out in the Red Rocks. And of course, you can come and see me, or you can book to see me online for some personal TARP guidance or healing and activation.
Well, I think this conversation has activated my psychic senses, because I'm getting a feeling we're going to be in Sedona in March.
I hope you're right.
Oh, I'd love that. I'd love that.
Gayle, always unbelievable conversation. It's such a pleasure having you on the show again. We're going to add those direct links to our show notes. So if you missed that, or if you didn't have a pen at that particular point in time, just go to skepticmetaphysician.com, go to her episode page, and you'll see the link to her website and to her YouTube page directly in there, as well as a link to her past episodes, so you can hear that as well, because it's really important. Gayle, I can't thank you enough for coming on the show again. It's a pleasure connecting with you.
Mm-hmm. Karen and Will, thank you so much. I love our chats. They're always really heartfelt. I genuinely love spending my time with you. I wish we could hang out more. We've got the pond between us, but that's just we're together in the ether.
Not in March, the pond
really?
won't be there.
Oh, great. Great. I look forward to seeing you.
All right,
That would be great.
Pleasure seeing you again. Take care.
Thanks.
Well, that does it for this episode of The Skeptic Metaphysicians. Thank you for taking the time to listen to this show. We know that you have many choices, and it is not lost on us that you are here. And if you like this episode, please consider leaving a review. It's one of the easiest ways to help us reach others. And before you go, I don't know if you've noticed, but high vibe creators like us who share these topics without the need to resort to clickbait or fear-based tactics are truly getting drowned out by those that focus on getting the click. That fear-based algorithm is out of control and making it a lot more difficult to get these messages that raise the consciousness of the planet out into the world. It's becoming harder and harder to be discovered in the sea of voices interested in our space. So if you enjoy what we're doing here, If you learned something from our podcast, or if you'd like to get this podcast ad-free delivered directly to your inbox, then please consider becoming a member of the Skeptic Metaphysicians Premium by going to skepticmetaphysician.com and signing up for our newsletter. There's a link to sign up in the show notes of this episode. If you are already a premium member of this podcast, thank you for your support. And if you're not a member, please consider becoming a patron of our work. If you want real knowledge in a world of fear-based content, it's essential to support those of us out there that are still trying to get them to you without resorting to triggering headlines and thumbnails. And as always, please like and share this podcast so that we can grow our audience, because the more people that have access to this kind of information, the better. As always, thank you for your time and support, and we'll see you on the next episode of The Skeptic Metaphysicians.